President of the Barrie Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today for our workshop. The workshop today is protecting your online presence, managing negative reviews, trolls, and more. So a lot of this is sort of foreign to me. Somebody else looks after it. So I'm actually excited to sit in and get caught up a little bit. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce Paul Markle, our Interim Executive Director at the Chamber. Morning, Paul.
Good morning, Todd. Good morning, Jim and Kevin. And good morning, everybody out there. Looking forward to this as well. We've got some and had some good content sort of moving forward. We've got a few other great things, and stay tuned with the Chamber. I'm not going to get a chance to speak again because Todd's going to hog the mic, but we do have things and activities happening as we get into stage 2, stage 3 openings. And we also have a Chamber chat coming up soon, so we'll have some more networking opportunities as well. But thanks for being here, and I'll let it back to Todd to keep going.
Perfect. Thanks, Paul. So now more than ever, personal and professional online reputation is a very big deal. Protecting your online presence is an orchestrated effort to improve an individual or business digital reputation while eliminating or limiting harmful online experiences. And I'm sure most of us, whether we've seen them or had them or whatever, we know they're out there, which is unfortunate. So today I'd like to introduce our speakers to cover this subject. We have experts Jim Lowe, Creative Director of Assisting You Social, and Kevin Hunt, owner of ProphetStudios. And just before I turn it over to these gentlemen, just like to remind everybody that after the presentation, we are going to have a Q&A session. So to submit a question, just click on the Q&A. It will come to me as a moderator, and I'll turn it over to these gentlemen. So it looks like, who wants to go first, Jim or Kevin?
I can go first.
Jim, it is. Fire away, Jim.
All right, so bear with me 1 second. So thank you so much, Todd and Paul, for having me today. Kevin and I have got some interesting and valuable tips for you. I'm going to really talk about some of the top level stuff, and then Kevin's going to dig into how to really effectively respond to reviews and also generate positive reviews. We've talked about the title says managing negative reviews, but probably the best insulation against negative reviews is having a robust number of positive reviews, and Kevin's going to talk about that. So, I mean, the most important thing is to actually be aware of reviews and mentions that are happening for your company. There are hundreds and hundreds of social media platforms and places where people can be talking to you, talking about you. It's important that you understand where your customers are and where they might be discussing you. The two biggies are Google My Business and Facebook. It's absolutely critical that every business these days claim and verify their Google My Business listing, as well as have a Facebook page. I've spoken to entrepreneurs who say, well, I don't want a Facebook page because I don't want to see negative reviews or deal with them. People are talking about your company. It's far better to claim those platforms so that you can actually respond to those reviews, deal with fake reviews, and engage with them. The third logo on the screen may not be as familiar to some of the viewers. That's Yelp. If you're in the hospitality, food services industry, it's critical that you're monitoring your Yelp listing. There are countless more, and this is where you have to do some research or work with a social media professional. If you are a contractor, Homestars is very important. If you own a bed and breakfast, then understanding Expedia and other sources like that are important. So learn where your customers are and make sure you're active on those platforms so that you find those reviews and can deal with them. The absolute most important thing that you can take away from today is do not take a negative review personally. It's very difficult especially for entrepreneurs and small business owners, because you put so much of yourself into your business. And when someone leaves a nasty review saying, you make the worst pie in town, or the flowers for my wedding, or a disaster, or whatever, you immediately think that's an attack on me. If you respond from personal hurt or anger or frustration or defensiveness, your response to the review isn't going to come off professionally and can actually do a lot more harm than the initial negative review. And Kevin's going to talk about how to properly structure a response. But it's not about you, it's about your business. You need to treat reviews, even negative reviews, as just part of your marketing plans and marketing strategy. That said, not all negative reviews are fair or valid reviews, and it's very important that you're monitoring things and you respond to certain types of reviews differently than someone who's just unhappy with your service. So certainly you want to be aware of anything that is libelous or slanderous. The lawyers out there will tell you which is which. I always get them mixed up. One's written, one's verbal. But certainly if they are saying things that are actually false about your business, you want to deal with that differently than someone who's just unhappy. Personal attacks on you or your employees, that's very different. We had a client who had a review from someone who attacked the physical appearance and said some really nasty things about one of their servers. That's not okay, and most platforms have a mechanism for you to flag those type of reviews. It's important that you do so. You generally want to avoid engaging with those type of reviews, even though you want to. Someone who makes a nasty personal comment, or accuses you of criminal activity or things like that, you want the platform to deal with them. You don't want to get into a flame war with them. And again, that's something that Kevin will talk about, because you don't want things to explode and your brand to suddenly be on fire because you've upset a troll. Sometimes there are things that you can't deal with, even if they are legitimate. Some businesses, due to confidentiality reasons, can't discuss things that have happened. If you're a therapist or in some type of care field, there may be a review that that there's more to the story, and you're unable to respond. That may be something to report as well. The other thing is to watch for irrelevant reviews. We've had business owners who, because someone is upset with the business owner's spouse, have left a negative review about that person's business. In general, you can, as well as competitors trying to undermine the competition, you can usually seek out those type of fake reviews by looking at the posting profile of the person on Google or Facebook. And in general, the platforms are very good about dealing with people who set up an account just to leave a fake review that has nothing to do with the service you provide or the product you sell. And this really leads into what Kevin's going to talk about, but quite often, a positive response to a negative review casts your business in a better light than having no negative reviews at all. I have clients who are obsessed with always they want nothing but 5-star ratings, and that's great. And some businesses, especially smaller businesses, are able to maintain and achieve that. However, it's not always possible. You can't satisfy everybody all the time. But what you can do is demonstrate your commitment to customer service and your professionalism in how you respond. And before Kevin gets into those effective replies, I want to give an example. So a client of ours a couple of years ago was the victim of a really nasty review that it turned out it was actually the spouse of a former employee. The review itself, though, had enough credibility to it that it couldn't be flagged as a false review, even though this person had never actually spent money on the business. They knew enough about the business to make it seem like a real review, but it was just completely out of the character of the reputation for this company. So what they did was they responded, detailing how they deal with client complaints. But then they also got a lot of other people to leave positive reviews. And in fact, because this company, which didn't have a lot of reviews, but had a lot of satisfied customers, those clients saw the company being unfairly attacked, not only left great reviews, but also started talking up the company and sharing their social media posts. The following week after that negative review was the most that client's phone had rung in almost a year. because their fans were raving about them and they had handled these things so well. So again, it's not the end of the world if you get a negative review. It can be, though, if you don't handle it properly. So, Todd, I sort of blitzed through that. One of the things I hate about Zoom is not having a clock right in front of me. But I think this probably naturally leads into some of the things that Kevin can talk to.
No, that was great. And just a quick interjection there, because I know I think of this too, and you brought it up about 5-star reviews. And when I've looked for services or whatever, and I see nothing but 5-star reviews, in my head, I almost feel like it's orchestrated. It's like you're absolutely that perfect and nobody has a complaint. Nobody's giving you a 4-star, 3-star. And I get a little step back and I go, is that actually possible for someone to be a complete 5-star across the board? So anyways, just a comment. And Kevin, we'll turn it over to you.
So just, is that why Markle's got a 4.9?
Yeah. All right, Kevin, unmute yourself and fire away.
Okay. So yeah, that's great. Thanks, Jim. That's awesome. What a perfect overview. Basically what I want to talk about is some just kind of practical ways of dealing with like negative reviews, handling those things online. Jim's comments about like, don't take it personally. It might feel like an assault on your brand or like your company, which you've of course worked so hard on over all these years. And then somebody just says something absolutely nasty and sometimes completely unwarranted. It can be very hard to separate yourself from what feels like an attack. So that being said, it's good to follow, in my opinion, the Dale Carnegie How to Win Friends and Influence People methods, because that is still the best book for how to communicate people and with people and solve problems and deal with reviews, because these are just, clients, customers that are mad about something. And the best way to deal with that is really still just follows the Dale Carnegie, not David Carnegie, Dale Carnegie kind of way. Like just for instance, if you are going to respond, if someone said something particularly negative and you're going to respond to them on Facebook or on social media, simplest thing is to make sure the first thing you do is say hi and then whatever your name is. Hi, John. I'm sorry this happened to you. And again, just using I instead of we can be very effective. It sounds so silly, but if you want to try to be, people want to be professional. We want to seem like, we're a large company or like a huge organization. But on social media, it's actually better to be very personal. Like I am sorry that this happened. Sounds much less defensive and more helpful than saying, we're sorry you felt this way. Because then it feels like you're already coming from a defensive stance. It's almost adversarial. Whereas saying, I'm sorry this happened, and then immediately offering to help can quickly change the tone of the conversation, right? It's very hard for someone to like continue being negative and unkind on a public page without looking like just a complete jerk when you do this, right? And so now like the context now, instead of this person said something incredibly negative and you're now being defensive, which means now you're in a fight with this person. The other way to do it is to create the context where you're trying to work together to resolve the issue. You understand that they're unhappy with this and you're sorry that it happened and you're going to try to make it better. So rather than battling it out online, you can just kill their anger with kindness, which I found is always to be the best way. There are exceptions, of course, where being nice doesn't work. I've seen a lot of like angry trolls over the years on sites that I've like built and managed for clients. And eventually there is a line, especially nowadays. We're in a very politically charged climate. And sometimes people can say really nasty things or take the conversation to a place that should absolutely not be on like a review for your business. And that can happen a lot. And that, again, people can just be purposely inflammatory. So unless someone is saying something that is like absolutely so offensive on your page or on like a review that you need to speak out about it, it's usually best to just cut out that communication, block them or ban them, report it, especially if it's like an actually offensive thing. If someone's saying something particularly racist, you can comment on it and then ban them, but don't ever let your business profile or your page or anything turn into a battleground for some other troll who's just trying to stir up trouble. So you want to avoid that pretty much at all costs. And then generally, if things go negative, if you can't kill their anger with kindness, if they're still being angry about something, if they're responding and it's creating a fight, try to take the conversation off the public page. Just politely ask them to message you directly, email you, whatever it takes, and then resolve it there privately. Because that way, even if they are going to be purposely negative or just are out to cause a fight, now they have to take it to a private thing where it's not fully public. Everyone doesn't see that publicly. A conversation ending there from a public perspective is all right. It's like, oh, wow, this is definitely important to you. Can you just send me a message and we'll get this resolved as best we can, is a great response. And then if that is how a negative review ends, the assumption is that it kind of ended nicely. Even if you do have to tell the person there's nothing you can do, and I'm sorry, this conversation is not going anywhere, you're being very negative, you're being offensive, I can't help you. At least it's happening in a private context and not publicly. And sometimes you can turn that conversation around and they can be very happy with the response. And it doesn't happen a lot, but people do add a follow-up review saying this got resolved, or I was really happy with the way this is like sorted out after the fact. And it doesn't happen a lot, but when that does happen, it can make that negative review actually look far better than just a whole bunch of 5-star reviews, like you said, which might be fake. Showing that you do have good customer service can be very important that way. Now, there are certain times where you'll get reviews or responses or people who are making outrageous demands or just completely false statements. Something like, oh, I didn't get my breadsticks, so I should have got the whole meal for free. And they're very mad about that. There's always people who are trying to get something for free. Again, with those people, it's also best to just pull that into a private space. Unless something went really wrong and you really want to help them because you knew it was a mistake on your part, and it would look far better if he was like, hey, yeah, come in, we'll give you a free whatever next time you come back. That can look really good too. But you just got to watch out for the people who are just trying to scam and trying to get something free. But either way, try to move it to somewhere private so you can de-escalate. See if there's a way to resolve the problem without it costing you a lot of money. Or just tell them to go away because they're just trying to scam you. But obviously don't try to do that. And then in general, you really just, the context always has to be that you are working together to solve the issue. As soon as you can take someone's negativity and turn it, all that negative energy, and turn it into somehow productive energy that like it's now the two of you working together as opposed to against each other like adversaries, then you can resolve things really well. And it looks better and it reads better on social media especially. People will see that you actually care about your customers, your clients. You want to make sure that they're happy. And you want people to see that you care, that those people are happy. So that's why it's very important to, again, kill them with kindness every time. And certain phrasings, like, yeah, we're sorry you felt this way, versus, I'm sorry this happened. I would really like us to resolve the situation. Can you email? Can you text me? I'd be very happy to talk to you about this over the phone, about what happened. Little phrases like that can be very effective in a public space because it shows that you care. Now, the last thing I didn't want to talk about, it was asking for customers to give positive reviews. And this can kind of seem counterintuitive because it can kind of seem a little skeezy. Like you're like, oh, could you leave a good review for me online? It doesn't quite sound right. But what I like to do, especially for when you have like clients that may come or may go, it can be easy to just have a little email, like something at the bottom of your footer, or just at the end of a transaction or interaction or something afterwards. Hey, it was great working with you. Thanks for the payments. I really hope we can talk again. If you wouldn't mind, we would love if you could post a review on like this site or that site. And the phrasing I like to use is, tell us what you loved, tell us what you didn't, let us know how we could improve in the future. It's kind of like my favorite phrasing because you're emphasizing positivity while also acting like asking for constructive feedback rather than just negative complaints being on your page. People will generally be like, this was great, this was great. I wish this was different, but then this was great. And so you will get more honest and also more positive reviews. But again, you have to draw that line between begging someone for a review and just asking for legitimate feedback. One example, I was traveling a lot back and forth between Toronto and Chicago, and I was staying in this one hotel, like basically for weeks on end sometimes. And every time I would check in, the manager of that hotel would always see me at the bar, like after like the day's work. I just go to like the hotel bar, grab a beer, and he'd always come by, and he knew my name, he talked to me, he was very pleasant, but he would always give me this business card for TripAdvisor and say, if you wouldn't mind, it'd be great if you really like our hotel, our staff, like the service we just remodeled. And like he said this to me probably a dozen times. Same little speech. It gives me the card and gives me a free beer. So of course I'm going to give him a good review, right? But I mean, I know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He's fishing for good reviews, but it worked. Like, I definitely gave a good review every time. It's not the most honest thing, but that's something that people do. And like, people can tell when you're fishing for a good review, but asking for just honest, constructive feedback can be very effective. And well, not everyone is going to do it, obviously, but there will be maybe, 1 out of 5 people who will write something nice, give some good feedback. So it can be good to ask. Just don't, beat people over the head with it. And yeah, that was pretty much all my points. So back to you guys.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So as you're talking about that, there's things rolling through my head because I have a lot of friends also that are in the restaurant business, and they have these scammers that'll come in and I didn't get this, I didn't get that, and they're looking for the free meal. And they've brought this up to me where certainly they're getting the negative review. And this is just my thought, and you two can jump in and give me your opinions, but my thought would be, you'd probably want to reply to that review, like you said, in a positive way, like, I'm so sorry this happened to you, Steve, whatever. My thought on something like that, instead of offering something up, is, when you get a minute, perhaps if you could give me a call to discuss, because even if you want to give them the free meal, I don't think, especially if you're a restaurant, you want to be posting out there, yep, sorry about that, I'll give you a free meal, because then you're going to get those scammers that are going to go out there and they're all just going to jump on that boat and go, hey, free meal here on Friday. And it's unfortunate, but there are a lot of people out there like that. It's just, I wanted your thought, like, would you try and resolve it online, or would you say, hey guys, like, give me a shout there, Jim, and we'll take care of this.
Yeah, well, and Kevin mentioned it. If you can get it offline or into a private conversation sooner than later, it's going to benefit your organization. If it's something extreme that you feel the initial review, is valid and so negative that you have to be proactive, then you might put it in the review. But generally, that sort of resolution, I wouldn't want to discuss in response to a review, because it just seeds the idea of, hey, we can go here, make some noise, and then get a discount or a free meal or whatever. It's far better to take steps that Kevin talked about and say, we're going to reach out to you through private message to discuss this further. Sometimes, especially if it's a legit, because there are people who have a legitimate complaint about your business, and when you resolve it properly, they'll leave another review saying, hey, they replaced the sink, or whatever the issue was, and we couldn't be happier. And that certainly there's a risk there that people will think, wow, maybe I can get my the work done again, or whatever. But generally that's coming from the customer who's been satisfied, as opposed to someone who's just told something free.
Okay, perfect. All right, guys, we'll go into some. Oh, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just sort of a comment on that. I worked for McDonald's for a lot of years, and I mean, you get a ton of training on handling customer complaints, and you get a lot of customer complaints. Anytime you have young kids, you're going to get people that do stuff. So, you talk about free items. So, my way of sort of handling that was always to assume innocence. Now, assuming innocence might last 30 seconds, it may last a half an hour, but you'll always investigate the claim. And generally, if somebody's taken the time to write something down, you can't take the risk that they're not legitimate, because you could be impacting the lifetime value of a customer. So in a McDonald's reference, the cost of a hamburger isn't worth the cost of losing that lifetime value. So you have to be relative to your business and what the value of your products are. But again, as you said, taking it offline is always a great example. But if you start with assuming innocence, you're never going to go into it with a confrontational approach. And you're going to listen to what the person has to say and then evaluate based on what they're telling you, and determine then how you're going to react to it. And it's gotten me out of a lot of issues where somebody's got a legitimate issue. And a lot of times they don't want something, they just want to bitch, and that's fine. You let them bitch and let them get it off their chest. At least they think and know that you're listening, and then hopefully you can make a change in your business and impact their next visit. So anyways,
Paul, the only thing I would add to that or modify that, in a lot of cases, they don't even want to bitch. They just want to be heard. Yeah. They want to know that their business is valuable to you and that you're going to resolve the problem they encountered. And it's not even a matter of complaining. It's like, my time or my money that I've put into your company is important, and I need to know that, you view me as important.
Yeah. I want to give you my business. I like coming here, but you're giving me reasons not to, and I want you to resolve it so I can keep coming, right? So that's I think online is the same thing. You just have to, as Kevin mentioned, you got to figure out a way to get that personalized and offline so that you can deal with it and not in a public forum, right? So anyway, so without interrupting any further, but keep on going. This is a great topic.
I think the opposite side of where you were going there too, Paul, is the habitual complainer. You recognize this person, it doesn't matter. Yep. They come in every Monday or whatever. It's like, there's going to be a problem with the drink. There's going to be a problem with the fries. There's going to be a problem with the burger, and you're just waiting for it. It's coming. And we've had, not many, but we've had the odd similar client like that where you just, no matter what, you're not going to make them happy. They're just one of those people. So we call it divorce. We divorce that client. We no longer want to do work with you. Thanks very much. But the time and effort that we have to put in way outweighs any possible profit that might have remained. So yeah, you got to watch that aspect of it too. Okay, guys, into the questions. Here we go. How do you navigate political comments?
Kevin, you take that one.
So that one, yeah, your reviews are not really the best place to have a debate or to make statements about like your political views. You don't want it to be a battleground. As I said before, if it's really bad and something that you find offensive or you think that your clients would find offensive, say that and then just block them, ban them, report it, delete it. Have that conversation somewhere else. It shouldn't be on your reviews or on your page. That should definitely, it should just be about your business and the service that your customers are getting. So I would definitely avoid that at all costs.
Okay. Next one up. Is there a best practice for giving someone a negative review?
So, it's important if you are a business owner or just anyone with profile in the community, so politician or involved in a service group or things like that. Be aware that what you write about a company also reflects upon you. So keeping it factual and keeping it fair is important. Sometimes companies suck. They do a bad job, and and a negative review is warranted. However, if you're being just petty and unfair, that is going to reflect on you, because a lot of times when people see something extreme posted online, extreme positive or negative, they're clicking through on your profile and seeing who you are. And if you've said something really over the top, attacking a business owner that they really like, or their favorite bartender, and you're saying something really nasty about them, it could come back on you. So you avoid that by being fair and being factual and listening to what the business owner has to say in response.
Okay, so I've got this is one of my own questions, because we have faced it in the past with previous employees here. And is there any true separation between an employee and their comments outside of work? And as an example, I'll just say my company. Like, we do a lot of government work. A few years ago, we had an employee on their own Facebook comment about how horrible the government is and how horrible they treat people and this and that. And I called that employee out and I said, I know this is your own time and this and that, but if somebody puts 2 and 2 together, you work for Markle, they realize that could come back and negatively reflect on us. To which their comment was, well, this is my own Facebook page and it's private. And it's like, well, it is, but a lot of people have commented to me directly on it. So is there a fine line on that, or is it just like it's your own, it's private? Like, and I know we talk about political and you should avoid all that, but this is the backside where somebody makes a political statement, they do it on their own, but people know they're associated with something else or another company.
Well, go ahead, Kevin. All right. Yeah, so the first thing to do is to talk to your HR department or the HR consultant, because you have to be extremely careful, particularly if you have policies in place. And great HR policies are the backbone of any organization. Sometimes your internal policies will cover that. It is a fine line, and Kevin may be able to talk about where that line crosses. One of the things I think it is appropriate for a company to ask for is if someone is quite visible and loud online, that they don't mention the company in their profile. So I know a lot of big chains have asked their employees to not mention that they work for company X if they're going to be political or offensive or whatever online. So there's at least that barrier. Does it insulate a company entirely? No, it doesn't, because people can do their homework and say, oh, I remember, that's the lady who served me coffee, or that's the person who was installing my new roof. But in general, if they maintain a paper wall between their personal profiles and their corporate experience, it helps a bit. But great HR policy probably helps more. But Kevin, you from a content perspective, where do you feel that line is?
So yeah, I mean, that pretty much sums up what I was going to say. Yeah, there's been a lot of companies over the years that have gotten a lot of trouble for telling people what they can and cannot put on their own public profiles, and for like wrongful dismissal lawsuits for firing someone for saying something that was incredibly inappropriate, but it's their own page, they can post that if they want. So yeah, it's the fine line is where it's legal to tell people what they can and can't say on their own private pages. That is the real challenge. But yes, as Jim said, the HR department should know the best.
Okay, next up. Do you think it is a good idea to respond to all comments or reviews, whether positive or negative?
I don't think necessarily on the positive comments. It's because if you're doing really well and getting a lot of reviews, that's going to take up a lot of time. Unless, yeah, if you get a 3-star comment and or like a 3-star review and someone's got a comment saying, "Oh, I wish the garlic sticks were better," you don't necessarily need to respond to that one. But if someone's absolutely outraged because the garlic sticks were, cold or uncooked, or if someone didn't install like part of your roof properly, that's something you want to definitely respond to. But I don't think it is time effective to respond to every response that you get.
So I'm going to mildly disagree. Kevin and I have been completely on the same page up to this point. And certainly it has to fit in with your business model. But if you either have an in-house social media manager, or if you're outsourcing to someone, taking that small amount of time to just thank someone for their review really reflects well on your company. And it does add up, especially if you're a restaurant. You get a lot of reviews, but just very quickly say thank you so much for your kind words, or we really appreciate your business. It makes that person feel that their time was well spent, and it builds their relationship even further with your company. So certainly you don't want to be have people lined up the door because you're busy on Facebook responding to reviews. But if you can build that into your business model, it really does help with your brand image.
Yeah, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, my way of looking at it is, anything you do online is going to be a reflection of how you would handle business in face-to-face perspective. So if you want to use the restaurant analogy, if somebody came up to your counter with a mediocre comment about your service, would you look them in the face, turn around and walk away? And the answer is no, you would respond to them. So I think from that perspective, you would do the same thing online. you know, the advantage is that you can do it within an appropriate amount of time. So set a company policy that says we'll respond to all messages within, say, 24 hours. So you can pick a time when it's more appropriate, or maybe the right person to make that response. I think knee-jerking a response is bad as well, because you need to think them through before you put a response through. So always creating a bit of time in between what's initially in your heart, which is going to be sometimes anger, and giving it a few hours to sort of settle down and percolate before you respond is always a good method or practice as well.
Paul, that's so key. And you know, I touched on it a little bit when I was talking about don't take it personally. Unless, you know, it's one of those red flag reviews, like, you know, personal information, you know, allegations of crimes or things like that. If it's just a bad review, it's actually not nearly as urgent as it feels to you as a business owner. And you can take the time to have a proper response. It sucks having it there, but the number of people, you know, in a day or a few hours who are going to read that one review is smaller than you think. And it's kind of like if you have you know, something about your physical appearance you don't like, it sticks out to you and you notice it constantly. Other people, it's just part of the overall presence that you have online. So you do have that time to get it right, and it's much better to get it right than get it fast, except in those, you know, really specific situations.
Okay, next one up. Does giving someone a negative review make the commenter at risk as well for negatively affecting their own business or reputation?
Yeah, it does, and you know, we touched on it with an earlier question.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, some people aren't professional, and you leave. We've seen, you know, cases where, you know, someone has left a negative review for a company because it was in retaliation for something someone from that company said. In general, you know, that's not too much of a worry, but you know, what you write online reflects on you, and if you can't do so professionally, it could hurt you. You know, I've seen someone make very negative comments about a company because of, you know, their perceived politics, and it reflected far worse on the person making those comments because they were just angry and ranting and you know, unfair. So again, you treat a review that you're leaving the way you would treat anything you post on your company or personal social media channels.
Okay,
And
next. Yep.
one thing I would add to that as well, when you're writing a review or any kind of feedback you're ever giving, comes from like the personal development side of things. The best format to have is the praise, correct, praise. So say something nice, then offer your feedback, your constructive feedback, and then end it with something nice. It sounds professional, it sounds kind, and you're not, again, ranting, you're not making yourself look like someone who is unprofessional and just someone that you would not want to otherwise do business with. So praise, correct, praise, I find, is the best format for any kind of suggestion, feedback, anything like that.
It's fantastic advice, Kevin.
Yeah.
And I tie into what Todd said earlier with the honesty principle. You know, if you have a bad experience with a business, assume that it wasn't because they, you know, were trying to screw you over or, you know, take advantage of you. Sometimes things go wrong. The best businesses have things go wrong, and you know, approaching it with that fairness in mind, that hey, you know, I like this. This is what you can do better. Is, you know, it certainly, it helps that business improve or solve problems, as opposed to just feeling that you're attacking them.
Okay. All right, next one up's a little bit lengthy, so pay attention. Here we go. Recently, someone was going through my business's slightly older photos and adding strange and questioning comments on them. As they were escalating into overtly negative interactions with no possible resolution, we have now blocked them. Will this remove their comments from previous posts? How far back should I go in addressing or removing their comments? Particularly on Instagram, how far back are people likely to look at photos and wonder about these strange comments? Now, there's a few different ones in there, and I could read it again, or you could just fire away.
So there are a bunch of questions there.
Yeah.
I have an Instagram expert on my team, so I actually couldn't tell you myself if blocking someone removes their comments. Kevin might be able to answer that. Unfortunately, if they are very troublesome comments, you're going to have to take the time or have someone go through your posts and just see if they're there. Sometimes we have to spend time in business doing things that aren't productive but are necessary to protect our brand. So I don't, Kevin, do you know how blocked users work on Instagram? You're muted, Kevin.
Yep. Yeah, so I don't believe blocking the person will remove their posts. I think those might have to be reported or removed. I've personally never had to deal with something like that, so I'm actually not sure if that's what would happen. I know blocking them would prevent future posts. Unfriending them, I'm honestly not sure. I can't say.
I mean, the easiest way, if you recall a specific post that you haven't deleted comments from, that they commented on prior to the ban, go to that post and look. But unfortunately, you just may need to scan through the posts and see. It's a good idea every once in a while to do a bit of an audit. Some of those older images you may want to remove as just sort of a spring cleaning of your presence. Sometimes they have old branding on them. They refer to products or services that you don't offer anymore, and it just might be time to clear out some of that older content anyway.
Okay, perfect. All right, next one up. Since you're the experts, this is perfect. Should you hire someone outside of your company to handle reviews on your behalf, or is it more beneficial to have internal staff responding to them?
Absolutely, hire Kevin or myself, and there's no.
See, that was easy.
Yeah, it really depends. If you have someone who is a customer service professional that also has the digital savvy to handle them, there are a lot of great companies in Barrie and Simcoe County who have marvelous teams dealing with their social media presence and with their reviews. If you don't have that person, or if it's just you and you don't necessarily have the temperament, or frankly, the writing skills to respond to reviews professionally, it is better to outsource it. In a lot of cases, business owners, either they don't have the time to look after this stuff, they don't have the interest, or they don't have the ability. And if that applies to you, you should let a professional handle it.
You good with that, Kevin?
Yep, I think that's absolutely correct.
All right, perfect. All right, let's bring up the next one here. How do you encourage customers to come to you first with their concerns before taking to social media with a negative review? It seems that many people jump right into a negative review without ever having talked to the business to get an issue resolved. I do see that too at times, yeah.
So one method that can be effective, but not all the time, is after you've resolved something with the clients. It's not necessarily the best for restaurants, but any proper customer interaction, client facing things. Having a little Google form, a survey, something that they could take after if they want to let you know how you did. Setting that out as an extra little supplementary email or message can be effective. You're probably only get maybe 1 or 2 out of 5 people that will actually fill it in, but having them fill that in on your form that goes to you only can kind of make sure you get that information first before they just go online and start ranting. So that would be one off the top of my head method doing that for sure.
And there are automated tools for that, particularly for companies that have customer databases. So if you're an auto detailer, for example, or an oil change place, or a hair salon, you can have a text go out to your clients minutes after they've done business with you that can ask them, how did we do today? If it's a thumbs up, then it can send them to a Google review or a Facebook review. If it's a thumbs down, then they can fill out a form that's staying off of social, but getting you that information. So there's certainly things that you can do to try to get people thinking about a direct interaction with you. Some people, though, especially the digital generation that has grown up where in an era where everything is reviewed online, their first instinct might be to go to Yelp without even. I know of examples where someone's left a negative Yelp review while they're still in a restaurant, as opposed to talking to the manager. So you can't entirely prevent it, but there are things that you can do to really reduce that element.
That's an interesting comment that you say there, Jim, in regards to like somebody actually leaving a comment while they're still at the restaurant versus actually addressing it. And we have many signs here at our office, but one of them is you can't teach common sense. It's like, why wouldn't you reach out to the server or the manager and say, I have an issue? Instead of posting something, see if they can address it, see if they can resolve it, see if they can make you happy while you're there. It's like, why would you just go and post something without even trying to resolve it?
Well, a specific example I saw, and this was not one of our clients.
Todd, you and I both know that sign doesn't say that.
No, one of the signs does, Paul. One of them.
A specific but funny example, and this was from a Toronto cafe, I believe. Customer had been sitting there for about 20 minutes and no server had come by to take their order. So they started leaving negative reviews until someone came over to take their order. And of course I laughed when I read about that, but it would have been so much easier to just get up and walk to the counter to say, could you please send a server over? But that was the course of action that the customer took.
Yeah, people are funny. Okay, next one up. If I hire a company to manage my social media, will they likely give me a report on negative reviews so that I can make improvements to my business? And secondly, will they reach out to me for insights on the situation in question before responding?
Depends entirely on the company that you hire. We work closely at Assisting You Social with our clients in dealing with not just negative reviews, positive reviews, because especially smaller, non-hospitality companies, they may not get a lot of reviews. They may get 10 or 15 reviews in a year. So getting that positive feedback is really important because they may want to thank. We work with a mortgage broker who actually sends a handwritten thank you note to people who leave him a 5-star review. I assume most social media companies will work with their clients like that, but I can't speak for other organizations.
Okay, gentlemen, it looks like we're getting close to our wrap-up time. So what I'm going to do is we'll go into closing comments before I make mine. Jim, we'll start with you.
Sure. Reviews are just a part. Online reviews are a part of doing business today, and you can't hide from them. It's something I said from the start. You may not want to deal with them, but you need to because your customers are talking about you online, and it is much better that they're doing so in a way that you can respond and manage than sort of out there without your input. Again, understand where your audience is, be on those platforms, don't take it personally, and take a professional customer service based response to negative reviews.
Excellent. Thanks, Jim. Over to you, Kevin.
Yep. Pretty much, yeah, what Jim said. Basically, the way you interact with people on any sort of public forum, media site, any of those things, the way your company and your brand interacts with those people reflects on you, right? Like on your company. It's the personality behind that name directly affects your company. And so you want it to be someone who is positive and helpful and generally wants to make sure that your clients are happy, that you appreciate their business. That was a great call out before. You should always make it known that you appreciate everyone's business and that you want more of it, obviously, because we all do. So that is very important. And yeah, not taking it personally, coming at it from a very positive, let's work together on this sort of way. Kill the negativity with kindness if you can. And if you can't, take it offline. or just to messages out of a public space for sure.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Jim. Thanks, Kevin. That was great. I learned an awful lot myself today, because like I say, I'm not very fluent in this. I have other people to look after it, but it gives me some more input and insight and things that I know I should be looking at, and certain ways of responding. I think we handle it relatively well, but it gave me some good pointers, so I appreciate that. And for everybody else out there, in closing, again, thank you for joining us and for the work you're doing in your businesses every day. We urge every leader in our community to maintain their focus on slowing the pace of the COVID transmission, whatever stage of business your business might be in at this point in time. And again, the Barrie Chamber of Commerce is here to help you through this. Please don't hesitate to call the chamber office or email for any questions or concerns you might have. And very importantly, we implore everyone to please shop local. We need your support now more than ever. And again, whether it's a gift card, a takeout from a restaurant, now back to the patios and things. So more and more places are opening, and they need your support to ensure that they're going to survive. And then lastly, as our province takes steps towards reopening, please ensure that you continue to follow all the social distancing requirements and take them seriously. The safety of our community is the responsibility of all of us collectively. And with that, again, thank you, gentlemen and Paul, and have yourselves a great day.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.